Welcome to Inspiring Women in Audit, the only podcast celebrating the achievements and journeys of women in the internal audit industry. In each episode, we spotlight the extraordinary stories, insights, and expertise of these dynamic professionals. Our aim is to amplify their voices, inspiring a new generation of women auditors to share their knowledge, experiences, and unique perspectives. Remember to check our show notes for links to our social media channels and to subscribe to the Inspiring Women in Audit newsletter. This podcast is brought to you by I4 Global Results Limited, the audit communication experts dedicated to transforming your audit reporting and your audit results through communication, optimization, and collaboration. Now, let's dive into this episode of Inspiring Women in Audit.
Welcome back to the Inspiring Women in Audit podcast. This is episode 25, and I'm excited today to have Silvia Puhani with me. Silvia brings nearly 25 years of experience across all levels of internal audit, from frontline auditor to audit leadership and Chief Audit Executive. She's the host of one of the first internal audit podcasts in Germany, where she explores hot topics in internal audit, things that we should all be caring about through conversations, cases, and insights. She's also an award-winning author and an experienced coach, speaker, mentor, and trainer, known for her work on communication, conflict management, and Revisionskompetence, which is a holistic approach to internal audit effectiveness. Silvia, we've known each other a long, long time. I'm super excited to have you here with me today. Welcome to the Inspiring Women in Audit podcast.
Thanks, Tracy. Thanks for having me.
As everyone is listening to this podcast, it is the last day of 2025. So I feel like that is like a really good day to be recording the podcast, to be reflective, and to also have an eye on the future and what we can all do and be and create together. So it's a perfect day for it. So I'd love to start with your audit origin story. I don't think any of us goes to school, high school, university, and goes, oh, I'm going to be an internal auditor. So what is your internal audit story? How did you get here?
That's a very good question, because it was an accident, or it was fate or serendipity or something like that. I did a usual job. I was always in banking after my university degree. And I started somewhere, and it was a middle office of asset-backed transactions. Back then, nobody knew what that was, because it was before the crisis and everything. So I started there, and we got audited. And it was the worst audit ever. So I didn't know what will happen, and my boss came running. Wow, we got an audit announcement. We got an audit announcement. And I thought, what is he talking about? So what happened was that he said, we have to prepare. We have to print out everything. So we just dump all the paper we have on him so that he will never come back. Okay, so he said every version of the program code printed out, each cycle of everything, every test, even things we didn't do anymore, print out everything. So we did that. And then the day came, the auditor showed up. And he said, oh, yes, I asked for some information and data. Oh, yes, come on. We have prepared something for you. And you know those boxes with the copy paper on that? And we had a little wagon for if you get a delivery for those copy paper boxes. And we put on, I think, 8 boxes of paper, but it was just put in. So it wasn't clipped, it wasn't sorted, it was just, we printed out everything we had. And then we say, we prepared something for you. Here, take this little card. And everything fell out of his face. So he was, wow, what should I do? And he was very young. So I met him later, several years later, and I still know him. And I never told him that this was me. We audited. So this was the first funny thing about my first interaction with internal audit. So then he took the paper, he went and I think he came once back and I never saw a report or had an interview, anything, nothing. He just showed up and took the paper, and perhaps there was one interview and then he was gone forever. After 4 years, I had my first child, and I wanted to return back into the bank, and there was a crisis in the bank because of Ostimmobilien. So Germany was separated and it was reunited, and everybody thought, wow, we buy all this property in Berlin on the eastern part. And they thought, wow, it would be valued very, very high and would be worth very much. But this was a kind of speculation. Prices went down, very deep down, and the bank was in a crisis because they financed, obviously, a lot of that. So I returned, had a little baby, and said, well, here I am. Because in Germany, you are allowed to go back to the place. So I said, well, here I am. I would like to pick up my work. And I had nothing really to do. They didn't have a job for me, and there was talk of cutting people. And so I thought, well, is this the place to be? I don't know. It would be easy because they would pay me. I have a little baby and it would be very fine and convenient. But I thought, well, Berlin is not the city you want to raise your child in, because the schools aren't very good there. And so I said, okay, perhaps going back to Bavaria would be the thing. And I tried to go back to Bavaria, applied for a job, and I wanted to go to risk control. The people in the bank said, well, thanks for your application. No risk control. We don't see you there, but how about internal audit for risk control? And I thought, well, okay. And as I heard that you really see everything in internal audit, and I really wanted to know how a bank is working, I accepted. So we went to Munich with a little baby, and I started on the 1st of January 2000 in internal audit.
Wow. So 25 years, and you're still doing this. You're still in internal audit. So what is it about audit that makes you stay 25 years?
So the first half year or the first 6 months, I thought, what happened? Where am I? Because nothing worked. You know, I used to go with my colleagues for lunch. Didn't work. Well, it works with the auditors, but when I audited risk control and asked them, well, how about a lunch? They looked at me as if I was an alien. So this wasn't possible. Usually in the job before, I asked someone, oh, could you send it to me? Okay, no problem. I got it. I was there. I asked them, oh, yes, please give me the document. I didn't get it. So I thought, what's happening here? This is impossible. But then I thought, well, back then it was very hard to find a job. So there were 300 applicants for one job position. So therefore I thought, well, can't skip it. And it would look very bad on my resume if I went there and after 3 or 6 months go somewhere else. So I said, okay, it must be possible to do this. What's about it? What could I do to improve this? And there my reflection started, self-learning process started. Well, my internal audit journey started. And there was one thing that was quite peculiar. After 2 or 3 years, you know the book, The Harvard Concept? It's about mediation and conflict management. And I read that book already 2 or 3 times. And then I was in a situation where I had to audit a project with 3 heads of the project. They were on the same hierarchy. So this didn't work. And I was at a CIA conference. and there was one professor, Professor Richter. And I asked him, well, now I've got this problem. There are 3 people in charge of this project, and I watched it and I audited it. And if one is on holiday, the other 2 say, okay, let's do this. So the other person returns from holiday and then is a roll backwards. The next one is ill or on holiday. The other 2 say, oh, let's do this. So this project didn't move on. It was a standstill. And I asked him, what should I do? What's the procedure? What's the measurement? What's the finding is the project doesn't work, but what should I do? Because the really answer would be talk to each other. Say, what is your interest? What's your perspective? And I have never seen an audit report where there's put as a corrective measurement, talk to your colleagues. This would be great. So he said, well, think about mediation. And then I started to learn about mediation. And this helped a lot. And then there was a part in this curriculum where we had a systemic view on the world or on a business. And now that made click, and I finally understood how organizations are working or why they are struggling.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a real insight to bring to internal audit.
Yeah, so this was the key. If I wouldn't have gone to this mediation curriculum, I would have dropped it because I couldn't manage conflict because of my upbringing. So as a little girl, my mother always told me, oh, be nice and cute. Don't speak up. You have to do what the men are saying.
I totally get that from how I grew up as well. I'm not a fan of conflict. And so we have to learn how to manage conflict, or as I like to do it, to prevent conflict. And that means working on communication skills and talking to people, like you said. And so I would rather, because I'm a big fan of the word collaborate as opposed to compromise. Because when we compromise, we all sides lose. But when we collaborate, this is your position, this is mine. How do we come together to have something that works for everyone? That's an even better solution. That's what I love. And I love what you said about. So I decided, or I thought about, like, how am I going to fix this problem? And I think that is a key distinguisher for good auditors, is they don't sit back and say, well, I can't do anything, right? We look at what can we control, and there's so much that's outside of our control, but there's a lot inside, but that's a whole other maybe conversation or a later conversation. But then what can I influence? And you've chosen to learn about mediation and to use that inside your work, probably inside your whole life, to work together to create solutions and all these different things. And I just think that's fabulous.
Yeah, and the journey went on because I went to Heidelberg to Dr. Gunther Schmidt and the Milton Erickson Institute. So this is kind like perhaps in the US, NLP. So the creators of NLP trained with Milton Erickson, and Dr. Gunther Schmidt trained as well with Milton Erickson. And he has a very special way about communicating on more than one level. So the personal level and the thing you're auditing, for example, so that you have lots of different levels in a communication. And this was eye-opening, and his concepts are the basis for my book, because I just took his concept for therapy and used them on internal audit. And that helped me a lot.
That's amazing. I think some of those things that we learn that we can apply in our work, and I do the same thing. When I built my business, I learned all these different ways to communicate in a way that resonates with someone. And so now I teach internal auditors to do that as well. So it's a great thing that we can take all those those skills and apply them, and you'll be a role model for others when you do that yourself.
Yeah, hopefully.
And I would say you're also a role model in a way because you have your own podcast. You are one of the first internal audit podcasters in Germany. And we met, gosh, when did we meet? 2015-ish? Something around that time frame?
15, 16, something like that.
Something like that. I was lucky enough to be a guest on your podcast, and I got to turn the tables on you and host and interview you for one of your episodes. Was it 100 or 200?
100. It's not 200. I know that. I think it's 100.
100 for your 100th episode.
Yeah.
So Silvia has 405 podcasts recorded and published to date. That is an absolutely amazing number. Congratulations on that, first of all.
Thanks.
I admire your consistency, and I'm wondering what motivated you to start the podcast, and can you fill us in on kind of what are the topics, what are the kinds of things that you talk about in your podcast?
So I believe there are too many bad auditors out there because I changed companies. Or you are in a company and there are leaders coming from somewhere else and you say, "Hi, I'm from internal audit," and they go, "Whoa." So that's the typical reaction. And that's not necessary. It should be something else. And if other auditors would be better, or if we as an audit community would have a higher skill level, we won't receive those reactions from other people because they have something bad happened, and I'm audited as well a lot. And if I got a bad auditor, that's really it's making me crazy because it's unnecessary. But it has a lot to do about how you go on with life, your personality, or did you train your personality, and how do you communicate? Are you able to reflect and view yourself from the outside? Are you able to have a meta perspective, and so on and so on? Are you able to handle conflict? So there are lots of human skills that are necessary to be a very good auditor. So when I came upon podcasts or where I recognized them, so in the beginning I listened to podcasts, and then I thought, wow, this is a medium to reach internal auditors, because usually we as internal auditors are introverts. We like to stay in the shadow, listen, don't show our face, don't go into interaction. So just view the thing from the outside, stay anonymous. And I thought this is perfect for internal auditors. And then I said, I have to start this. There was a really gut feeling, I have to do this. And I told myself, okay, podcasting is a very new thing. I'll do that for 1 year, each week 1 episode, and I won't look at the numbers, because I will do this for 1 year and just put out the episodes. And then let's see what happens. So I did that, and when this year approached, my motivation fell down because I thought, now the year's completed, task accomplished. And I realized, wow, why do I have such a feeling? Why is my motivation gone? And then I recognized, I said, I'll do it 1 year. And this was the end. So I didn't tell myself, now we'll do it each week forever and ever and ever. Yeah. And as I realized that, And I said, no, this podcasting is so important, because in those times, people asked me, wow, are you the Silvia Puhani with the podcast? And I said, yes. And it was really astonishing that people came up to me or wrote an email or just getting connected with my, they reached out for me. So this was great. And I thought, wow, somebody is listening. And I kept on doing it. So
I think you really are a pioneer.
when podcasts came out, I tried to look. I used Apple Podcasts, and I Googled or searched for internal audit, and there was one, but there were just 10 episodes, but you couldn't click on it, so it went down.
Yeah.
Perhaps somebody tried it and stopped it after 10 episodes, and I thought, wow, there's nothing there. Even in English, I would have listened to it in English. There was nothing. And so I said to myself, okay, I'll do that. It took me half a year from the decision to the first episode.
I get that.
It's a really hard process to doing that. Getting out, putting your voice out, and so on. Yeah, but fortunately I did it, and I'm very happy about it.
And what have you learned about yourself in this whole process?
I think a lot, and what I like most is that I got in touch with lots of people, internal auditors, thinking similarly. Well, there are some, they have this, oh, I'm the police and what I say is right and don't bother telling me anything, or you don't need communication skills because I know what's right and you have to do it. I didn't stumble upon those people. And this was the biggest learning. We are a very large community with very open-minded people. We can't do everything we want to, but the community trying and to influence is really great.
And is there one conversation that kind of stands out for you?
Yes, of course. The one with Dr. Gunther Schmidt, obviously, the one who trained with Milton Erickson. I went on his curriculum for 3 years. And when the book came out, he read it. And so he wrote something for me. And so there is a very special, he's my mentor. So I don't know if he knows it, but he's my mentor. And I had him on my podcast, and that's the very special episode for myself. Number 57.
I was just going to ask you the number.
Yeah, 57.
Because we can put a link to it in the show notes for everyone to have access to. So that's amazing. And I know your podcast is in German for the most part, yes?
Yes, I think I have 2 or 3 episodes in English.
Okay, but with the tools we have today, hopefully folks can do some translating, simultaneous translating or something. Yeah, because that would be amazing.
It should be on YouTube as well, and there I think you have the subtitles there as well.
Okay, that's good to know.
It should be automatic. Apple said that it would be automatic. I really have no idea. I don't listen to my own podcasts.
I do to review them, but I know you have a compliance officer for yours.
Yeah,
so you have
my husband.
have someone to review them for you.
Yeah.
All right, that's amazing. So you've been a Chief Audit Executive for over 11 years. And so I don't know how you feel about this question, but when you look at the profession right now, given all those conversations that you've had and the reflection that you've done, what's the real problem that we're not talking about enough?
I think the problem is that we tell ourselves that we are wanted. Internal audit is the best thing that could happen to a company. And so every company should be happy to have an internal audit department. And I don't see that in reality. It could be because I'm working in banking and there it's mandatory to have an internal audit. So it's like there was Christmas, you have an uncle or an aunt, you really don't like them, but they'll come to your Christmas party anyhow.
I like that analogy. I do have some clients who are in I would say, a challenging position because they aren't in banking. They're not required. So it's a new function, maybe 1-2 years old, in an organization that is looking into the future of wanting to go public. And so they want to get their house in order and have their internal audit team established well before they go public. But there are definitely some challenges, especially when it's owned by a small group of people, when the company's owned by a small group of people, because they don't really appreciate some of the recommendations that are made.
Yeah, I think I can relate to that, yes. But it's even in banking that recommendations aren't appreciated. So
I think so.
It depends on, you have lots of things you can do with the communication skills and the conflict solving and cooperation and so on. So the possibility that you will have a good outcome so that you agree on something, you could increase this possibility, but you can't ensure it. We can't ensure it because we are working with people.
Right. Absolutely. So do you have like one message for auditors who feel like they should be welcomed with open arms?
Increase your professionalism. Because I think you can do very, very much. You can't do the last % of it, but you can influence a lot and you can do a lot. And don't give up.
I love that.
Just keep on.
And what about one piece of advice for auditors who face that cart full of disorganized paper and are unwelcome in every department they walk into? I hope there aren't many of us left because I remember those days too. What's your one piece of advice for them?
Increase your competence. And
Great
usually
advice.
what's the main problem is that people think it's the others. They're all doing it just to blame me because I'm an internal audit. It's their fault. It's not my fault. So this fault thing, or he's bad, or he has no idea, or something like that. This trash talk, it doesn't help. It's your colleague. Try to cooperate. If they are uncooperative, then show them that there is a stop and that they can't do everything with you. So just say, that's not the way I want us to talk. And then go on.
And lead by example.
Yes, of course. And you learn every day. Even now, after more than 25 years, I'm learning every day something new. Or I reflect on something I haven't seen that way. So internal audit is great.
And I like to reflect on how I can get a different or a better outcome. If something hasn't worked, what can I change for the next time? Is it how I present myself? Is it how I present the topic? Is it the language that I use? Sometimes, yes, it's them. They're just not receptive and you can't control that. But, how can I influence it?
Yeah. And that's basically how the content of my book was created. I had every problem in that book. And I asked myself, is there a better way?
How do we get a copy of that book?
You go to Amazon, but it's in German, so sorry.
But now
it could be translated.
It could be translated really easily. I would do that if I were you.
Yeah, I asked them, but they're waiting for the second book. I have not finished yet. So,
There's another book coming.
yeah, hopefully. But now, with AI, my motivation really went almost totally because why should I write anything if you have AI? But the new ideas have to be put into AI. So therefore, I think I'll write it. I'll finish it. I have to change it once again.
I think you should write it. I think book 2 would be well received. And let's get your publisher to do that in English as well.
Hopefully, yeah.
There's a whole world out there.
I know.
Outside the DACH region. Yeah.
Yeah.
Super. Well, that's a good segue because, AI can rate, AI can analyze data. So, what's our competitive edge anymore? Where is our value as internal auditors going forward?
I think it's where it's always has been, because just crossing off items or checking things, this is such a boring work. This is not what a company needs. Well, it does need that, but there are internal controls for that. The work of internal audit should be beyond that. So the work of internal audit shouldn't be anything black or white. Anything that's black or white, one thing is correct, everything else is wrong, this gladly can be done by the machines. I don't want to do that. Everything else where you have the gray area. So this is where my systemic view comes into that. You have different perspectives. You don't have one thing that's right. So like handling COVID, the pandemic. There was no one way to do it. And we are always trained because of Taylor of this one best way. There is none. So each country did something else. And you could monitor what is Sweden doing, what is Germany doing, what is the US doing, or what is which state in the US doing. And then you can reflect that. And then you get your clues. What's working, what isn't working. And then you go on and go on and go on. And I think that's the most interesting part of internal audit, because everything changes. We have a complex world. The environment changes. We have a very different political situation. 4 years ago, the world was completely different. So now we have this current situation. We have wars coming up. We have inflation, interest rates, and so on. So the setting is changing. And what we should do as internal auditors is, okay, we monitor the setting, we know our company, and then we have to think what could become a problem in the future because of the changing settings. So the very easy thing would be interest rates go up or down or something like that. Or tariffs. When Trump started all this tariffs. So the world changed. How does that affect my company? What should I audit in order to bring a perspective on that thing? Because we as internal auditors, we are able, even as a Chief Audit Executive, that's the best part about the job. You can think about what will be relevant next year or now, what is now relevant, and what do I have to audit in order to set the company better up than before. So something is changing in the world, and I recognize, it could be a recession, it could be anything. I recognize, wow, in this area, we could have a problem. And then, okay, what should I audit? A very simple example would be the baby boomers exiting from the workforce. So we have lots of older people. We know they will be gone. We have some young ones, and there is a gap. There aren't enough. Now the world is changing, and what do? But you could think into the future. What do I have to audit to perhaps make that gap visible if it's not on the radar of your human resources department? And that's the most interesting part about audit. You don't audit what you did last year. You think about what should happen or what could happen and what would be interesting that the company has a discussion about it. So they don't have to do what I want. I just want that they see the issue, that they have a discussion about it. If they say, forget it, we'll ignore it, it's okay. But I want to make them talk about those issues.
I think that's a great perspective. There's just so many points because I think we're really good at hindsight, and we should be giving insights. And ideally, I think we should be giving that foresight, is like looking at emerging risks, looking down the pike, even if you don't want to put the label on it as emerging risk, because I think a lot of auditors aren't actually trained to know what an emerging risk is or to look for an emerging risk. When you get to your level, you have a different perspective because you've done this for so long. I would like to see more insight and foresight coming out of our audit shops. Because again, hindsight we can do hindsight blindfolded, hands tied behind our backs. We know exactly what to do to get that. We report it. We're mostly good at reporting it, although not always good at reporting it. But what I rarely see is insight. Even in audit reports, when I teach audit reporting, I talk a lot about this audit conclusion or audit result or audit opinion. It doesn't matter to me what label goes on it, but there should be some kind of insight to say, what does this mean? What does this mean to the business? And ideally, I would love to see some foresight there and an executive summary as well. And I've got one client who does it. Yeah. And it's a process. They've been doing it now for almost 2 years. So they're refining. They're teaching their audit team how to spot these things that could come and smack the company on the back of the head that they weren't looking for. Kind of like COVID did, although you can argue we should have known. We had all the signs, but we always think, oh, it won't happen to me. It's going to happen to someone else, but it's not going to happen to me. And it happened to all of us. So I think those kinds of perspectives are super important, and it doesn't have to be in an audit report, but it has to be somewhere in communication with the board or communication with senior leadership somehow.
So the audit won't be on foresight as such. You would audit as usual, looking to the back, but then you audit the adaptability. So are we able to change? Are we able to move on, to let go of something? Are we good at innovation? And the issue depends on the company, because and on the culture. So what's the problem in your culture, in the corporate culture, that could result into a problem? And what could you do to influence a little bit the discussion about that issue?
And I think there are a lot of kind of, I'll call them well-established companies, decades, sometimes over 100 years, where they're learning the hard way that change needs to happen. They need to be able to turn the ship faster when these things start coming at us. Because as you said, we're living in a different world than we were just 4 years ago. Like nobody could have imagined we would be here today. If you had asked me in November 2019, would this be the world that we're living in? I would have thought you were crazy.
And it's happening so fast. And
so I want to pull back to AI, because AI, there's a new announcement every day. There's an upgrade on Gemini or ChatGPT or Claude or Manus, and Manus is getting purchased. And I mean, there's all these things that are going on. Companies are gobbling up to create their AI empires.
Wow.
And there's really no privacy anymore. Your phones are listening to you. Your microwave is listening to you. Like everything is listening to you. AI is scraping, as you know, we're talking about your book, scraping everything that we do. So how does audit deal with that? How should audit adapt to these AI changes? And I always see it as two sides, right? What do they need to do? What does audit need to do in its own processes? And then how is audit going to audit AI and AI governance within a corporation or an entity?
Well, about that, how you audit that, I have no idea. I'm no IT auditor. I really don't know. What I'm afraid about is all those deep fakes that will make it very hard. And I think I received the first AI created procedures for a part of the company.
Mm-hmm.
And that was so bad. So this was obviously a corrective measure. Write down your policies and procedures. I received
they have to be
something.
vetted.
And, well, I don't know, perhaps it wasn't created by AI. You never know. But all those deep fakes will make auditing very, very hard. And therefore, I believe that the communication side we are both working on, Tracy, will be more and more important. Because AI will do auditing, but I won't call it auditing. This is just controls. They will do internal controls. Think everything that's controllable is done by AI. What's left? What's left is what you see. What's left are the patterns. The patterns your organization is moving. And if you can detect those patterns, you can spot them. And if you can spot a pattern, you can change it relatively easy, even in a big organization, because the pattern is the same if it's a very large issue or it's a very small issue.
Mm-hmm.
And the trick is, don't fight against the large issue. Use the small issue where everybody is comfortable talking about. No one will lose their job about that because it's a very small issue. $5 gone. Something like that. So nothing big. And don't look at the fault, look at the pattern. And then think, okay, can we recognize that pattern somewhere else? And what could we do to change our pattern? In communicating, in decision making, in whatever.
I think that's great advice to look for the pattern. And I think too that what we bring is knowledge of the individuals that we're working with, knowledge of the company and its history, knowledge of the corporate culture.
Mm-hmm.
And we get a chance to reflect on that. And that's going to give us a better perspective, better insight than just running it through AI. I know last year when I was teaching at a client and they wanted me to focus on, it was communication training, but focus on VUCA and have people on the team learn how to think on their feet. So I did use AI. I thought, so for company X, you drop in the website, all those kinds of things. Give me the top 20 emerging risks so that we could at least talk about them in the training. And then it's how you talk about them. And it's kind of opening their eyes. So they may not be the right risks in the end because it's AI looking at everything, but it's a great starting point for a conversation. And going back to procedures, and if they're produced, using AI, as long as they're vetted. But the problem that I find, because I can tell if a report's been written using AI, right? I can tell because it's not a natural language pattern, and it's not
too perfect. It's too perfect,
right? And it doesn't say concisely what the issues are, and there's a lot of big words. And what we're all going for in our audit reporting and in our procedures is things that people can follow, things that people can understand, and then go and turn around and implement something and take action on it. So I think we still have a lot of work to do in terms of how we as individuals and as entities use AI. But I do think internal audit, should be using AI more to automate those things that it doesn't need to be doing anymore, because they can then turn and focus on insight and foresight and all of those things and have those conversations with their audit clients.
But having conversations is so hard. So I believe lots of us are very glad, to just do the same audit over and over again. So things are getting better. I don't find anything. Everybody knows what I'm auditing. Life is easy. There are no discussions. There is a very beautiful report. I just used the one from last year, changed the date and the figures or the numbers or whatever, and I'm done. And that's the problem. We have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's really, really hard, and that's not easy.
I don't want to work on that audit team.
I don't want to be in an audit team where you just do the same thing over and over again because it's easy. I like to ask the very hard questions and do the interesting stuff.
And for me, it's about being challenged and being curious and having the courage to try something new and to look at new areas.
Yeah, but that's not easy, and not everyone will do that.
Then they would be working on a different audit team than mine.
Yeah. If you have the choice.
So speaking of that, I want to talk about leadership a little bit. So you've been at this for a while. I'm wondering what you've learned about leadership over your career. I'll just have that as my first question. Is there any kind of insights that you want to share with us?
I think you have to treat leadership in terms of catching people doing the good stuff, the right stuff. I believe it's not useful just saying, oh, you did it wrong, or I don't like that. If you constantly try to catch the good stuff, it's like training a dog. You don't beat the dog. You shouldn't beat the dog. You just, if he sits down and say, wow, sit, yay, great, and he gets some meat or something.
Treats.
So some treats, yes. And I think that's the way to do leadership. You will always have your top performers. You will always have people that are in challenging situations, and you have the low performers. And I think you have to separate the performance with the usual effort. So the usual effort should be constant 80%. That's great. If the performance is sinking, try to get knowledge about why it's sinking. Is there marriage breaking up? Is there a baby? We had that during COVID with working from home, small children. They had no kindergarten, nothing. So that the performance wasn't the best, it's obvious. I don't even need to talk about that. I'm thankful and grateful that the mother tried to work. And I'm happy when she could return into the office, but I don't have to bother about that. I had one auditor of mine, his mother had dementia, and I recognized that he was always calling home. Oh, she doesn't pick up the phone. I have to drive home and look after her and so on. And this was in a time where we weren't allowed to work from home, but we had the possibility to do that. And I would say we had a personal arrangement so that he was kind of flexible, more flexible than the official policy. Because what should I do with an auditor who can't concentrate because he's always thinking if his mom opens the fridge and throws out everything or
Falls down or something.
falls or whatever. So therefore, I think special occasions need special treatments. Or special handling.
I think it's important to recognize, when you're managing people, that we can't manage people the same way. We can have kind of general philosophies in how we run our department or how we run our teams, but each person is an individual and feels rewarded and acknowledged and appreciated, and receives feedback in different ways.
Yes, and one thing I would stress for internal audit, because people are very, very different in what they like to audit. So is it IT? Is it risk control? Is it whatever? And therefore, I always say, this is the plan. Do you have any ideas? So that we have a large list of audits we have to do in 1 year. And then the people are relatively free to pick one. So it's their choice. If someone is new and is learning something, and there is kind of, first the easy one, then the next one, after 3 years, I want to see a hard one as well. So this would be my thing that I would say, oh no, not the easy stuff. You have to do something more challenging. Each year, one new thing that you haven't done before. But any than that, it's their choice.
I think that goes to keeping people motivated, right? Because motivation should come internally. Like you can give someone a raise or a promotion, but if they're unhappy, if they're not motivated, that's only going to last maybe a year, and they'll be gone. And everyone's talking these days about how hard it is to attract young professionals into internal audit. So do you have any thoughts on how we keep our teams motivated and how we attract new people into the profession?
I think that it's very good to give positive feedback. So if somebody writes an audit report, you read it and this changed, that changed, and structure change or whatever, and you see it and you think it's like at school, everything is red, I don't want to do it. So you have to point out the good stuff, the findings or the writing style or whatever. So giving people feedback so that they can improve. And I think every person wants to improve. And if you point that out, that it's better than last time, or what kind of improvements you see, I think this is very good. So not that you think that I don't say, wow, this is shit, you have to change everything.
We all get that feedback sometimes.
Happens as well. Or if when interview didn't go good at all, reflect on that, talk about it, have a corrective measure or what to do, what should be what we want to try next time, how we want to change the process, the audit process, and then it's fine.
And I just hope what you said is true, that everyone wants to improve.
Well, obviously, some people don't want to, but then why do I need to give them a hard time? So if you have someone who doesn't want to improve and just said, oh, leave me alone, I have enough trouble at home, I just want my part, I'll do that. And if they do that, it's fine with me. You don't have 100% of the people overperforming. You don't have that. You have some of them, they just happy doing the same thing once again, but they do it very good. If they do it good, where's the problem? I'm no micromanager. So the hard part is in my audit team that you have to structure your work for yourself. I won't do it for you. You have to do it on your own. So if you are there for 3 years and you've learned it from your colleagues, you have to be able to structure your day, to be able to structure your audit on your own.
And if they can't?
Then I have a problem.
I do understand that problem.
Yeah, so it depends. It depends. Is it a young person? If it's an old person. I once had a colleague, he was 65 or so, and he just didn't have the cognitive capacity to do something new. New procedure, new something. He just couldn't fathom it. So why should I give him such a task?
Well, again, we can't manage everybody the same. And so
No.
it's recognizing people's strengths
Yeah.
and where their vulnerabilities are, where maybe we don't put something, give the task to them. I mean, we all face that as managers. Don't give that task to employee A or team member A, because that's just not their strength and it would make them miserable.
Yes.
And it would stress them too much. All right, I'd like to jump to something new. It's called a rapid fire round.
Oh.
So I'm looking for quick, short answers, and I will not interrupt you. I will just ask you the next question.
Okay.
Okay. How can audit overcome being perceived as the police? Still an issue as we head into 2026.
Make friends and work on your communication.
What is the top skill you would look for in a new hire?
Conflict management. Is he able to speak up even in conflicting situations?
What advice would you give your 25-year-old self?
Work on your personal development, do the mediation curriculum, and the other one, the systemic one as well. And don't be so hard on yourself.
What one thing would you like every management board to understand about internal audit?
Internal audit is a craft as well as an art. And it's worthwhile listening to internal audit.
What change would you like to see in the internal audit profession in 2026?
I would like us to speak up and don't, if there is a scandal and something has happened, we as well say, oh, internal audit didn't work. Don't assume that. I think we are, as internal auditors, we can up our professionalism, we can improve our skills, but don't think if something happened, internal audit didn't work. We can't ensure that everything is working.
Okay, super. Thank you for that. And my last question is about really when you reflect on your 25 years and you look forward a little bit, when you think about women who come up behind you in internal audit, that next generation will face their own challenges. What do you want your legacy to be, and what would you like them to know?
Well, obviously, my podcast is part of my legacy, definitely, and my book. But I believe that women are made for internal audit because women are communicators. Women raise children. Women are in conflicting situations. Through the history, we as women shouldn't underestimate ourselves. If we think that everything the men are doing is so great, just watch some news, the wars and the conflicts that are there. The women I talk to don't think that we would have the same situation if women would lead those countries. We would have different problems, but we wouldn't have the ego-driven problems. I would tell to all women, know your worth and go on forward.
Excellent.
Internal audit is made for women.
Thank you so much for sharing your perspective with me today on the podcast. It's been a real pleasure. I love talking to you, and I feel like we could talk for hours and hours more. So thank you for being here, and I look forward to the next time.
Thanks for having me, Tracy. It was my pleasure. And I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Inspiring Women in Audit podcast. We'd love for you to stay part of our growing community, so subscribe wherever you're listening. If you're enjoying our content on platforms like iTunes or Spotify, a quick 5-star rating from you would mean the world to us. It's a small action that supports our mission immensely. Don't forget to explore the show notes for various links and join our vibrant community on all our social media platforms. Your interaction and support play a crucial role in amplifying the voices of inspiring women in audit and spreading their inspiring stories even further. Thank you for being a part of our journey, and we'll catch you in the next episode of the Inspiring Women in Audit podcast.